Hi, everyone. Good morning. My name is Dr. Manu Chaudhary. I serve as president of Capital Dental Care. I've been with them for the last few years now. As two really fun facts. One of them is that about 15 years ago, not trying to age myself, I was at University of the Pacific, which is down in San Francisco, and Dr. Doug Young was my professor. And he spoke about things at that time that I thought were phenomenally crazy, no offense, which was around, which was cariology and this concept of medically treating it. You know, flash forward 6-7 years later, after I was exhausted from drilling and filling, treating 2-year-old patients that would come back 6 months later with the same issues and the same problems, I did two things. Number one, I started taking everything that Dr. Young had trained me on. I reread all the papers before that, and I started integrating it as dental director of an urban IHS clinic in California. And the second thing I did was that within the community health center I was in, I actually hired a dietitian directly within the dental department, which was a really fun fact. Good morning, Dr. Allen. Nice to see you. Sorry, Dr. Allen is the chief dental officer, I guess, or the VP, vice president. Yeah, vice president of all things dental for Advantage. Nice to see you. What was the next thing? Dr. Frachella spoke about one thing really important that I think is important for all of us to hear. One of the questions that he had asked is about how many pediatric dentistry referrals go out from the organization. And a few people said, 1 to 2 a month, or 1 a month, or maybe half a month. Well, from Capital Dental Care, and Advantage might be completely different. We see 12 kids being referred per month. Year to date, we've already had 47, specifically for OR care. So the needs of us as humans is to look at changing how we treat and practice and care for people. And that is really why we're all here. We're here to elevate humanity. I know it sounds silly, but I'm a really big and a true believer that we are all here to elevate humanity. And I believe, and others in Capital Dental Care, and I'm sure Advantage as well, that we really fundamentally believe that the way to do that is to achieve a lifetime of health or a lifetime of oral health. And the medical management of caries will get us one step closer to achieving that. The last thing I want to share, as far as anything I can do to support and serve each and every one of you, I do sit on 3 positions with the state. One of them is that I'm on the state's healthcare workforce committee. I've been a member of them for a few years. I also sit on the Health IT Oversight Council, co-chair of its HIE work group. And lastly, I'm on its metrics and scoring committee. Things that you probably have no idea about of what exactly it is, because I definitely didn't until I actually joined. I was like, oh my goodness, that's crazy. But please feel free to introduce yourself. I'll give you my business card and reach out anytime. I'm here to serve you and support you, not only in this thing, but from a humanistic perspective, each and every one of you to live your true and fullest potential. I know it sounds crazy, but I personally do. Okay. Thank you very much.
There's 2 people that I would like to have say something. So, Crystal, please.
So I run a large nonprofit in Montana. We're school-based, and we see a lot of Head Start students also. We see the EOBs, and it used to be about 7,000 to 11,000 was the average EOB, and now we're seeing an average about 12,000 per EOB, just for your information. And I was to dinner with some friends a couple of weeks ago, and they let me know that there was actually a 2-year-old on our Crow reservation that passed away from general anesthesia. So, and these are small communities, and I was sitting there wondering how many, so we refer out to everyone who has caries, and we don't even know how many of our kids are having GA. So it's a lot.
Thank you, Crystal. And now we have another death. And the last one I know about, and correct me if I'm wrong, was the Topeka, Kansas one of about a year ago. Was that about a year ago? Yeah, about a year ago in Topeka, Kansas. Pediatric Kansas. Yeah. This has just got to stop. We have a list. That's why dentists buy malpractice insurance. It's $3 million. That's hush money. That's what that is. That's hush money. We want to continue to allow this to happen to children. How about the humanity that we just heard from the CEO of Capital Humanity, talking about humanity here. Thank you so much for that, Doctor. I really appreciate it. And then I got this question: what is SMART? From a dental hygienist. And thank you. It shows us how varied our group is, guys. So we need, I don't want to talk up or down to anyone. So please excuse me. I know many of you know exactly what SMART is and that you do it and that you're expert at doing that. But we actually have people here who are hygienists who don't know what it is, and that's okay. We are here to teach them and to teach ourselves, okay, to support each other. So SMART is Silver Modified Atraumatic Restorative Treatment. So if you know what ART is, as per Yo Franken, in the United States they call it ITR, which I hate, and I'll tell you why I hate it later, okay, as we begin talking. But SMART is Silver Modified ART, so it's ART with silver in it, okay? And this is the textbook on SMART, but there's also another one over there, and that is Jeff Knight's from Australia, his book on SMART also. He also has a SMART book. And this is coming out in a second edition probably a year from now, we hope. Dr. Duffin has just informed me of that. So, anyway,
it's free. It's free.
Yeah, and it's free, and this book is free. This book, you don't have to buy this book. This book is available, and I'm going to show you where, okay? Eventually. Okay, next slide, please. Okay, we just talked about silver as medicine, silver ions. Now we're going to talk about fluoride ions as medicine, and that sounds kind of boring, you know? Like, oh, we know all about fluoride. We've been using fluoride forever. And I contend that you probably don't know as much about fluoride as you might think. First of all, strategies to control caries. From Margarita Fontana, arguably the foremost cariologist in the United States, maybe even worldwide, okay? Fluoride and sealants are the two most evidence-based strategies for caries control. We gotta start there. There's where most evidence is, okay? Sealants and fluoride, all right? Glass ionomer provides both in a more unique and powerful way than any other restorative or occlusal sealant material ever in history. Next, please. Okay, the first official WHO statement on glass ionomer was made by WHO in 1998, and it says, if restorations of decayed primary teeth is required, preference should be given to ART with glass ionomer. ART is glass ionomer. Next, please. Okay, so ART is atraumatic restorative treatment, introduced by Jo Franken from the Netherlands in 1996 as a minimally invasive technique to treat and prevent decay in primary teeth. The ART protocol is to remove decay using hand instruments with no local anesthesia and to fill cavities and adjacent pits and fissures with glass ionomer. Its hallmarks are you don't need a dental chip, you don't need pipe water or electricity, and no local anesthesia. Because glass ionomer desensitizes. It's ideally delivered by dentists. However, trained primary care providers can also do glass ionomer, and we have an example of that in Luke, sitting right here in front. He's an RN, and he provides glass ionomers worldwide, okay, on non-dentists. All right, next, please. So the second time the WHO said something about it was recently in 2021 when they put it on their essential medicines list. Okay, call on next. There it is at the bottom for the executive summary of essential medicines 2021. Next. Okay. This is one of the most important. I showed, okay, two slides. This is the second slide I said is a really important slide. The one other slide was the microbes in the tubules. Anything else to finger, right? Okay. This slide, super important. Memorize this slide. You're going to see it again and again because I'm going to show it to you a number of times. This is the evidence that the WHO used primarily for calling glass ionomer a medicine. And what we're talking about is the fluoride ions in the glass ionomer that are medicine. This is a really interesting study. Okay, this was done on 2,557 7-year-olds who were studied for 2.5 years in Italy. And what it found is that glass ionomer here on the occlusal surface prevents caries interproximally. It has an effect beyond where you put it. That's what makes it medicine. It is not just a restorative material. That's what makes it different from resin sealants. That's what makes it different from a composite filling. It's medicine that affects adjacent teeth. Next, please. Glass ionomer has 3 distinctly medical properties. It is antimicrobial, it's desensitizing, and it's remineralizing. All a function of fluoride ion release, but the last is a function of a transfer of other minerals that are in that glass ionomer, and guess what? Those same minerals are in teeth. There's a very strange fact I'd like you to think about. If you take a tooth and crush it, smash it with a hammer, and put it under a scanning electron microscope, and you do the same with this glass right here, you will find that they have the same mineral content. Nothing is more like teeth that we make that is man-made than glass. Okay? Glass and teeth become one. They become one, grasshoppers. Say one. They will become one in your mind when we are done with this part, because I'm going to show you where and how they become unified as a single entity. Next, please. Okay. Glass ionomer is equal in clinical performance to composites. Well, ongoing advancements in reinforcement and strengthening of glass ionomers have greatly increased in the past decade. Old information, pre-2010 glass ionomers are not the glass ionomers we have today. They are not what we have today. The new info is that we have modern improvements in high viscosity glass ionomers like Fuji 9, Fuji Equia Forte, that have much more satisfactory properties and versatility. That's from a study in 2015. Next, please. Fluoride levels, go ahead. All right, we're not going to go over this whole chart. All you need to look at is the yellow, okay? Glass ionomer, okay, all of these things. Look, SDF, yes, 45,000 parts per million, but then it's gone. Yes, it does go into the tooth, it seeps in there. Yes, there is a zombie effect, but essentially, it's gone. You put glass ionomer in a tooth, in a lesion, it's not gone. It stays there. 200 parts per million, continually released. 200 parts per million. Remember, fluoridated water has 1 part per million. Okay? And then, if you do SDF and glass ionomer, you seal the SDF in, you get the 45,000 plus the 2,000. You get 45,000 parts per million continual for 6 months. Are you kidding me? In one place? In one tiny place? Enclosed? Encapsulated? Hermetically sealed? There's never been anything like that in dentistry before. That's what scares dentists. That's what scares our profession. That's what they're afraid of. Because this is a miracle. Next, please. Okay. The release values are triple. They come in 3 stages. Initially, there's an early burst of 60 parts per million, then there's the first month's release, 20, and then over 6 months, there's a continual release of 200 parts per million. Next, please. Okay, no other restorative material releases even close to that many localized, highly concentrated fluoride ions. Next, please. It recharges. It is constantly and automatically recharged because it has to be recharged because GIC starts out with a finite releasable amount of fluoride ions. Fluoride released from glass ionomer, and this is from Doug directly, this is a Doug Young quote, it's like power draining from a battery. I loved it when Doug said that to me. It's like power draining from a battery, John. Oh, okay. Essentially, the reservoir of fluoride ions in glass ionomer runs out unless it's recharged. Glass ionomer is recharged with fluoride from other sources like fluoride toothpaste, fluoride mouth rinse, fluoride varnish application, fluoride in the water, fluoride in our diet, and it is ubiquitous in our diet, by the by. Okay, next please. Okay, internet searches pull up quotes like this. Glass ionomer study indicate intrinsic fluoride toxicity. I actually saw that on the internet. And believe me, your patients are going to see it too. Okay, we need to be prepared to address that quote. Next, please. Okay, evidence of safety from the fluoride released from glass ionomer. Fluoride is ubiquitous in the food chain, and almost all fluoride that we ingest is deposited in the bone. Some is excreted in urine, and some floats around in our serum where bodily tissues absorb it. This happens every day, over and over, leaving a steady concentration of 0.1 parts per million in your serum now. Everybody in this room, everybody on the planet. And you don't up it when you give glass ionomer sealants or filling, and we'll show you that in a minute. Next. So, in the 1980s, Dr. Martin McIntyre, who I mentioned before, was treating high-risk patients using zero extubation and glass ionomer in public health settings. This was in the 80s. Okay, so he did morning and nighttime urine samples because he was concerned. He's in Saudi Arabia, he's like concerned. So can you believe it? This guy did this, and he shared his data with us. Okay, regardless of how many glass ionomer fillings they received, they still had in their urine samples only 0.1 parts per million. Okay? One 4-year-old patient got 8 sealants on primary molars. And then he found out that the dad of this patient was an anti-fluoridationist. And the dad said, take those out. And Dr. McIntyre said, well, is it okay if I take a post-op fluoride levels sample, serum or urine sample, and he did, and it was still 0.1, and then he took them out. So it did not do any harm. It did not raise the level in that child, that 8-year-old child, or 4-year-old child, excuse me. Next, please. Okay, so if concerns continue, we can cover glass ionomer sealants and or restorations with low viscosity unfilled resin or with composite. That's called the sandwich technique. Or if, say, we have a glass ionomer sealant or a filling, and then we can cover it with an unfilled resin, like what you use when you do composite. Okay, but what that does is it blocks the preventive effect that the glass ionomer has on non-glass ionomer treated teeth. So it stops that effect that I showed you in the spaghetti study in 2014. Okay? So resin-covered glass ionomer still has antibacterial and remineralizing benefits, but only inside the tooth or the teeth in which you put it, not in adjacent teeth in which you are not putting it. Okay? So it doesn't have that preventive effect on adjacent teeth, which I think is one of the greatest benefits of using glass ionomer in the first place. Next, please. Okay, decay removal. Next. Okay, I'm not going to read all of these, but this is a support from the literature, and I'll just read the first one, that the removal of infected dentin isn't fundamental for caries arrest. 2013, 2008, 2013, 2016, 2016 again. Complete caries removal technique is no longer recommended. Don't remove it all anymore. Just say no. Next, please. Okay, the part of the dentin that can be remineralized is called leathery dentin. Okay, next. You go through the soft stuff, then you get the leathery stuff, then you got the hard stuff, then you got, a layer of dentin, then you've got the pulp. Demineralized leathery decay, not yet mushy, can be remineralized. So don't remove it. Huh? Okay. Next, please. Okay. How to leave leathery dentin undisturbed. Use hand instruments only to gently remove soft, infected dentin, leaving all firm, affected dentin intact. Rotary drills remove inadvertently most of the time, remove too much remineralizable, healable tooth structure. Okay? Next, please. Stop doing that. That is not okay anymore. It will not be long before that is malpractice. And you will be called on the carpet for that as malpractice. We're very close to that point. And if I have anything to say about it, we're going to get there sooner than later. Stop doing that. Next, please. Lesions. This, to me, this is one of the most important studies. Thank you, Doug, for bringing my attention to this study, Caries Research, 1992. Lesions just at the DEJ are almost never cavitated. Of lesions in the outer half of dentin, only 40% are cavitated, which means 60% aren't cavitated. And we're drilling those? Not okay. Most lesions that are on the inner half of dentin, often, if allowed to sit that way, will eventually shift towards cavitation. Doesn't mean they are cavitation, but they will, if left long enough, shift to cavitation. This is the Pitts and Rimmer study. If you don't know what it is, I strongly suggest of all the studies that I've shown here on these slides, that you look at this study. Because when Doug pointed it out to me like 10 years ago, it stopped me dead. There's the evidence. Next, please. Hamburgers. We have a new instrument, and you have that instrument in front of you. It is a burr on a stick. It's as simple as that. It's a dang burr on a stick. And it's used to gently remove soft infected dentin. Next. Here they are. I use them in 4s. So in the sterilizer bags tomorrow, for those of you who are going to be there when we treat live patients, we're going to have these in sterilizer bags in 4s. There's going to be a 2, 4, 6, and 8, just like you see on the screen. You don't use these as 1s. When you're given one, dentists call me and say, I don't know how to use this. This isn't working. What is this all about? Well, that's because you only have one. You have to start with the small one, and then you build up to the larger one. And as large as the lesion is, and as large as you need to go. Next.
Dr. John, you might want to just clarify, when you go from the 2 to the 4 to the 6, it's really quick.
Very quick.
You use a 2.
Yeah.
And then,
So those of you who don't know, this is Jerry Boschman. He is the dental therapist that developed these. And he's trying to impress upon us that it's quick. You don't need to stick with the 2. The 2 gets you in there. Grab the 4. You're in. Okay? Use the 4 for a couple of seconds, literally. Grab the 6. Oh boy, you're going to know. You're looking at the x-ray. You're looking at the tooth. You're going, this is a big one. We're going to the 8. It's fast. Boom, boom, boom. You're not lingering on these, but it's progressive.
but it's pressure technique with
Total pressure.
Without the pressure, it's not going to happen. That's why there's a pump cap. That's only a sample. It's not like, it's just for you to look at, because we're going to need them in the clinic. We just wanted you to have them on your tray.
We
Please
just want
don't
you to
walk
be able
away
to-
with them, because we won't be doing any clinic on Tuesday if they do that.
Yeah, go ahead. Okay, here's the whole point that Jerry and I are trying to bring to you, is that we want you to remove only what should be removed, and we want you to leave in place what should not be removed. So the best way for me to explain that to you, and I know you all know this, is that when you grab a nice new sharp spoon excavator and you're in leathery dentin, you start peeling it off in layers, don't you? It's like layers of an onion. And you go, pop, and that first layer comes out, and you say, oh, say to yourself, you might even say to the patient, boy, this is deeper than I thought. I'm going to just take off the next layer. And you go to that second layer, and if you're lucky, you get a second layer off. But 95% of the time, what happens? Boom, the whole thing pops out. You just removed indigenous bodily material that is unethical for you to remove from that patient, because that is remineralizable. It is healable. It is his or her bodily material that you have no right to remove. Think about that. Okay? Next, please. Here are some images from Dr. Thierry Boulanger, who lives in Brussels. I call him my brother from another mother. I've never met this man, but he keeps sending me these cases, and you're going to see a ton of these cases. Because I'm telling you, this man and I have had the very same experiences. If it weren't for Thierry and it weren't for Jerry, I never would have tried hammers. Jerry tried to get me to use hammers a year before I used them. The person that really turned the tide for me was Thierry. When he got in touch with me from Belgium, and he says, I know Jerry's been talking to you about this. You got to see these. And he sent me these slides. And he's going into that lesion that you're going to tell me when you get your hammer in your hand, you're going to say, I can't get through there. You're going to look at the x-ray and you're going to say, look, but there's no cavitation. Well, look how thin that enamel layer is. You take a number 2 into that on the far left, here, right here. You take a number 2 right in there, in that fossa, and you start twisting that between your thumb and your forefinger, and it's going to go pop. And we've got no local anesthesia here. Now, if you're nervous because you just popped it and you've gotten to this, and you're thinking, oh my God, the patient's going to scream. The patient doesn't scream. There's no sensitivity in that marginal ridge that you just popped off. There's none. There's no nerves there, guys. You're miles from a nerve. SDF it. Thank you. You hear him? Under his breath, he goes, SDF it. That's right. Just pop that thing, SDF it. Now you can get the 4. Okay? And that's where he's at over here. He's going in with a 4. Okay? Next. There we go again. Different case. Look at that thin marginal ridge. Come on. That pops right off. Boom, and he's in. Okay? That's what it looks like clinically, where the green arrow is. And that's what happens when he goes in. But it drops right in, guys. Next. And it takes just a second, Jerry. I mean, just, you're in, right? Boom. And you go to the larger one. Next. Okay, there you go. He's in. There's that marginal ridge. Now he takes a dull spoon, and I do this sometimes too, but I never dig with it. I'm just scooping what I call cream cheese or cottage cheese, just schmutz. It's just gooey stuff. That gooey stuff is never going to remineralize, guys. You got to get the gooey stuff out. Okay, and you can't rely on a hard instrument to do that. You can take some of it out with your spoon, okay? But the rest of it, you got to take it out with a microbrush. That's why I take the microbrush and I'm using the SPF and I'm moving it all around. I'm twisting it here and there and everywhere, and I'm getting that smuts out of there. I want that cream cheese gone. Okay, so I scrubby. Next, please. Okay, and this is literally what it looks like. They leave in place, hammers leave in place what can remineralize the leathery stuff. They're minimally invasive, and they use zero aerosol. Come on, who needs aerosol anymore? I don't. I hate it. I hate getting that kid's cold. They don't want his flu or her flu. Next, please. Partial excavation with disinfection is more important than complete excavation. This should be your mantra. Disinfection is more important than excavation. Disinfection. Okay?
And board examiners would be cool to hear that.
Oh, board examiners ain't going to be cool to hear that. Board examiners are not going to be cool to hear that. But they better hear the science. Because if they don't, we're calling them on the carpet. Because enough is enough. We're not going to take it anymore. To repurpose, remineralize, and heal leathery dental should be our goal. What the?
The ADA, the next ADA, evidence-based clinical guidelines for caries management on restorative, is going to publish that selective caries removal is preferred over complete caries removal.
Say it again.
The team has just finished a new ADA evidence-based clinical guidelines for caries management based on restorative that was accepted in JADA in some time in the future, soon to come out. And it's on restorative materials, but one of the side things that they're going to mention is selective caries removal is preferred over complete caries removal. So that should answer some of the questions.
What would we do without him? This guy is there, boots on the ground at the ADA. That's why I count on him. I'm honored that you're here. Next. Reintroduces mineral ions. Glass ionomer reintroduces mineral ions. What is decay? Decay is the loss of the mineral ions. The minerals, see them in your mind's eye. Think like an atom. The minerals are leaving. Okay? And you're taking a glass, you're smashing it into a powder, and you're shoving it into that decay, and those minerals go back in through the same pathway that they left, through the same door. Whoosh, straight in. Teeth re-heal themselves. Little or no recurrent caries would get better prevention at the margins. Caries lesions can be reversed. Yeah, what's the board going to say about that? Huh? Caries lesions can be reversed. Doctor, we are teaching over treatment. In fact, our boards of dental examiners are requiring that we show proficiency in over treatment and mutilation. Mutilation, over treatment, and mutilation is what we are required as dentists to show proficiency in. That's not okay, Doc. That ain't okay anymore. I'm sorry. Next, please. Next one. It reintroduces mineral ions. Which ones? Phosphate, strontium, or calcium, depending upon the GIC brand that you use. The interchange between calcium and a lot of it's proprietary, and you're not going to know all of it. But this is Doug has helped me to get down to the fact. Doug and him have helped me to realize that those three ions are the really important ones, along with fluoride, of course. Okay, those are the minerals that we're putting back in. As long as we don't remove what can remineralize. If you remove it, it's not going to work. Next. Okay, unexcavated leathery dent and under glass ionomer restorations, remineralizing, don't grow. Okay, that is from a great study on the right. Okay, no other dental material releases such a wide variety of highly concentrated mineral ions, not just fluoride ions, all kinds of mineral ions, to heal leathery, demineralized dent. That's why there's little or no recurrent caries. Don't try to do the same thing with composite resin. It won't work. Next, please. Okay, it provides better prevention at the margins. Okay, it exchanges its rich supply of mineral ions with surrounding solid and not so solid demineralized tooth materials. It puts minerals back into demineralized tooth structures. Next. Can be reversed. That's how we're going to change dentistry from drill and fill into seal and heal. We're going to do this because we have a team that is going to ensure that this happens with the dentistry and the profession itself and or the industry that supports it, including the plastic industry, wants it or not. Next, please. Okay, I'd like to show a quick video. Can we toggle to the first video? Okay, watch this. This is what's inside your cap. polyacrylic acid and glass powder. So it's separated by that, okay? When you hit the plunger, it punctures that diaphragm. You shake it, the two mix, you express it out. So there's two chambers. One has polyacrylic acid, and one has the glass. And the glass has been sitting on the shelf in a box, in this box, for how long? Who knows? You've got to fluff that glass up because what does it do? What does talcum powder do in your medicine cabinet? You know, it just kind of packs down. So you got to tap, 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 tap on a hard surface. Fluff that glass up and get it ready for the polyacrylic acid, the liquid. When it enters, it wants to enter a fluffed up glass so it all mixes well. Next, please. Next. Okay. Polyacrylic acid. Here's the chemical components. The polyacrylic acid, so critical. pH 5, mildly acidic. 7 is neutral. Mildly acidic. Interesting. By contrast, phosphoric acid H is pH of 1. pH is on a sliding algorithmic scale. Phosphoric acid is 10,000 times more acidic than polyacrylic acid. Polyacrylic acid has the acidity of orange juice. Polyacrylic acid is contained in the capsule, but it's also important to use it from a separate dropper bottle to be used to condition the surface of the tooth. Because the mineral ions and the surface of the tooth need to be woken up because they're asleep. They're not ready yet. They just been like, we're just there. Okay, yeah, woo, you wake them up with a polyacrylic acid. You don't want to wash them off. If you put phosphoric acid on there and you leave it on long enough, you're just going to rinse them away. They're going to go up into the high-speed suction. Quit with that phosphoric acid stuff. It is not a good substitute. Acid X removes too many of the minerals on the two surfaces that are necessary for the glass ionomer to adhere. Okay? This is really important. Doug and I are disgusted about this. But manufacturers have recently started suggesting that the polyacid conditioner isn't necessary. That the polyacrylic acid is in here. It's in the capsule. And the manufacturer's saying, well, you don't need to put more on the tooth. And we're saying, no, you're wrong. You do. Okay? Polyacrylic acid conditioning is absolutely essential to initiate the chemical cross-linking set, which is the second set. We're going to talk about the set phases. It's the second set phase. Okay? An adhesion phase of glass ionomer and resin-modified glass ionomer. Skipping the polyacrylic acid conditioning will prevent good cross-linking, which is essential. Okay? Why do they recommend this? Because it skips a step, and they sell more material, and that's not okay. Why? Because dentists like to skip steps. I know you're not a dentist yet, but dentists like to skip steps, don't they? Oh my gosh, here's some new material. Look at Becca, she's shaking her head. Dentists want to say, don't skip that step. Okay? The powder part of the glass ionomer where the mineral is located is pH of 7, which is neutral. And the third, I'll get to you in a second, Doug, the third and most important component of the three is water. And that's what we're going to talk about next. Go ahead, Doug.
So can you,
Yes.
question,
Good.
I'm the
Go.
audience.
You're my teacher always.
Go back to that slide. Can you explain in question 1 the ramifications of making a goof and putting phosphoric acid on dentin versus enamel? Because if you get it on enamel like you're doing at sealant,
Yeah, like
it's
you're
not
doing.
going to kill anybody.
It's not going to kill
Put it
anybody.
on
But
dentin and
yeah, but if you put it on dentin, you're just absolutely. Here's what you want to think about dentin. This is the way I learned it. From of all people, and you're going to hear from him in a minute. Ray Bear said this. He says dentin is like a handful of soda straws. Okay, and you're looking at the ends of those soda straws, right? And what's inside there? No, minerals. Minerals and kind of, they're free to flow. And water. Water is inside. Water is inside there. Now, we're going to talk about water in a minute, okay? But I want to answer Doug's question. When you put that phosphoric acid in there, man, it goes straight through. It's just like, whoa, it's in the river. You just polluted that river. You just polluted that stream. It's going straight to the pulp. And then you have sensitivity and you wonder why? Come on. It's a kiss of death. Right? Is that answered?
I was trying to get at, it removes mineral and leaves collagen, which glass ionomer has no chemical reaction.
Yeah. Glass ionomer has no chemical reaction to the collagen that is the side of the soda straw, the tube. Okay? That's all it leaves. And it takes all those minerals that are in there that the glass ionomer reacts with. That's why it's medicine. That's why you can't use phosphoric acid on dentin. And how? It's just like burrs. It's just like rotary burrs. You inadvertently remove too much. You inadvertently get it on the dentin when you try to keep it on the enamel, unless you're super, super careful, which in a problem kid, in a management situation, in a rodeo, is very, very hard to do. Yes, I'm an adult patient that is very well managed, and we can be very, very exacting and do that kind of work in a controlled clinical setting, yes. But seeing 50 patients a day, and they're all Medicaid kids, forget about it. Next, please. Water. Glass ionomer contains water and is hydrous and hydrophobic. I'm going to concentrate on this again by telling you that this is one of the most important slides you're going to see. Hydrous means contains water. Hydrophilic means mixes easily in water. Mineral ions can't transfer positions biochemically from restorative materials into enamel and dentin through dry air because mineral ion transport is a process that requires moisture. And there's the reference. If you don't believe me, look it up yourself. Next slide. Water catalyzes the release of the mineral ions in the glass powder. It catalyzes the reaction between demineralized enamel and dentin, which sparks, there we go again, that word, ionic interaction between decayed enamel and dentin and fresh, highly concentrated mineral ions in the glass powder. Water prevents newly placed glass ionomer from becoming chalky and from cracking, which leads to structural failure. And you're seeing Doug shake his head because that is so important. That third thing, keep that in mind. You keep this stuff wet forever. Water is saliva is glass ionomer's best friend. Always keep the surface of freshly applied glass ionomer moist, and the saliva works best. That's right here in the Mount book from year 2000, revised in 2002, I think. Like I said, he's passed. But it's right here. It's in chapter 2 by him, no, Doug Strand. Next. Composite. Composite doesn't contain water and is thus anhydrous and hydrophobic. Anhydrous means it contains no water. There's no water in it. Hydrophobic means it fails to mix with water. Fluoride and other minerals inside of composite, and you will see, look at your new composites. Oh, it contains fluoride. It's a fluoride-containing composite. That doesn't mean squat, because the fluoride and other minerals in the composite and in the comprimers are the same, remain locked in anhydrous resin where they fail to mix with air-dried two structures, and we got to air-dry it, because that's what we do when we're bonded on this, when we use composite. Composites and comprimers can't transfer mineral ions into teeth, thus they can't remineralize. Yet you're going to see this time and time again in JETA and every other place you can look in the front and in the back cover in the ad copy that the composite industry, the plastic industry is feeding you And it is absolute pseudoscience. You cannot transfer minerals. You cannot turn hydroxyapatite into fluoroapatite in dry conditions. In arid and hydrophobic conditions, it just doesn't happen. Next, please. Newer, better composites that release materials, these will never, ever, ever outglass glass. You can't outglass glass. Next, please. Here they are. Look at the list. I'm not going to read them all to you, but you've heard about them. You've heard about Predicta, Activa. Are you kidding me? Oh, it releases all these minerals, and we had this run on Activa. Why? Because they had this advertising blitz. And every pediatric dentist on the planet went to Activa, and they all failed. Worse than their old composites did. They'd have been better off not using them at all. Horrible stuff. And total false advertising based on pseudoscience. And how about MTA? Mineral trioxide aggregate. It works. It's formulated from commercial Portland cement. It contains the same minerals found in glass ionomer, but without the maturation strength phase. We're going to talk about it in a couple of seconds. That is so important. And it costs a minute unless you go to Lowe's or to Home Depot and buy some Portland cement and bring that into your office. Because that's all that stuff is. And it costs you a mint. And it's all, Theracal, Therasan, my butt. I'm sorry, my butt is way more bioactive than any of that. I'm sorry. It's offensive because it's pseudoscience. And it's hurting children. Next, please. Okay, saliva and glass ionomer. Saliva is mostly water and minerals, and it hardens glass ionomer. Saliva, teeth, and glass ionomer share the same minerals. They're all the same minerals. Okay? 40 days exposure to saliva increases the Vickers hardness number of glass ionomer by 39%. Woohoo! All right. Okay. When applying glass ionomer and resin-modified glass ionomer teeth, all surfaces must be moist. But from Doug Young to me, at least 10 or 12 years ago, not too wet and not too dry. Now, I'm saying that to you, dentists. Not too wet, not too dry. Knowing full well that if I tell you to dry that tooth with that air syringe, you can do that impeccably because God knows you know dry. But do you know moist? Do you know not too wet, not too dry? Probably not. So you're going to need to learn what's too wet and what's too dry. What's Mr. In between? And you need to learn that the patient's saliva works best for moistening tooth structures before glass ionomer application. And now I go into the office, and the dental hygienist or the dental assistant has the patient in the chair, and they're crying behind what? A rubber dam? And I can't get to their saliva because the rubber dam is in the way and the clamp doesn't allow me in there? And she or he already has that patient in the chair who's crying behind the... And rubber dams? I grew up with rubber dams in dental school. Rubber dams were good. Rubber dams are bad now because they provide two very important things that we do not want. They block me from looking at the rest of your mouth, and they block me from your saliva. I want to dip my finger in your saliva, and I want to spread it on your glass ionomer. I know that sounds gross, and I know that sounds like against everything you ever learned in dental school, but you've got to start using the patient's saliva to make it appropriately wet and keep it appropriately moist, not too wet and not too dry. There's all your references. Go ahead, Sarah. Next one, please.
I know you're speaking of pediatric patients a lot here.
Adults too.
But with the geriatric patients with dry mouth, can you just use water when they don't have?
Absolutely. In geriatric patients that are zero stomach, of course, just use water. You don't have any other choice. Absolutely. Thank you, Sarah. More on saliva glass ionomer with assistance from saliva. Now, this is from going in. I love this Andorian study, Doug. I know this 2004 study. American Journal of Dentistry study is just amazing. With assistance from saliva, glass ionomer forms a permanent acid-resistant. Now you're going to hear this word over and over again. This term, zone of chemical fusion. I'm going to say it again. The zone of chemical fusion. Did you hear me? I said the zone of chemical fusion. Memorize that because I'm not going to let you forget it. It's deep within enamel fissures, and it doesn't, but it increases with calcium and phosphate content, which comes from saliva, okay? Which is much more resistant to cutting with a dental drill than original tooth structures or composite materials. Saliva increases matured glass ionomer translucency, making it resemble natural enamel. Huh? Next, please. There are 3 phases I want you to memorize. There is the initial phase. It happens within 2 to 4 minutes after application. It's identified by a loss, clinically, of gloss. After it loses its gloss, you are done with the initial phase. And manipulating it any further is the kiss of death. You know what you do too much of, guys and gals? You manipulate too much. Because you could. Because you had a light to cure the composite. With glass ionomer, you don't have the luxury of manipulation anymore. Because if you manipulate after it loses its gloss, you risk adhesion failure. So when dentists tell me it didn't work, it didn't adhere, I say you did not honor step number 1. The second step happens 10 minutes after the initial adhesion phase, and it's identified chemically by the formulation of hydrogen bonds between 3 carboxyl groups, which initiates glass ionomer healing. That's 10 minutes after the 2 to 4 minute period. So now we're almost 15 minutes into it. But then, ladies and gentlemen, comes the maturation phase. And that is where the magic occurs. Grasshoppers. All is one. The glass and the tooth become one in that phase. They are inseparable. This is not resin tags adhering micromechanically. This is chemical fusion. Maturation happens between 48 hours and 3 months. It's identified by a true ionic bond between cations. Cations, I keep talking about ions. You need to think like an atom, not like a dentist. Cations in enamel and dentin, anions in glass ionomer, which replace the hydrogen bonds created during the second phase, which is called cross-linking. You've got to give those post-op instructions to avoid crunchy, hard food for 24 to 48 hours to allow initial maturation with minimal interruptions. And then after that, you still got to wait another 3 months. This stuff matures over time and it gets harder. Next, please. The adhesion phase that makes all the difference is the maturation phase, because that's when the tooth and the glass unify in the zone of chemical fusion. This zone is integral to the tooth via the same biochemical pathways that turn hydroxyapatite into fluoroapatite. Can you make fluoroapatite turn into hydroxyapatite again? Good luck. This is permanent. Next. Yes.
Are you referring to dual cure, JC?
It doesn't matter whether it's dual cure or whether it's single cure. It makes no difference. We're going to talk about dual cure because that's one funny little term. And it gets in the way a lot. And Jeremy Horst and I love Jeremy. He is a brother. He brings all the science to it. He doesn't get what I'm going to say next. And if I got it, thank you. If I've got to, I don't know what I'm going to have to do to have him enter this slide and understand this, that it doesn't matter about dual cure or single cure. This zone happens with resin-modified glass ionomer. The difference is, with a resin-modified glass ionomer, if you don't like cure that dual cure stuff, it leaves unpolymerized resin on the surface. Test it. Take some Fuji 2, right? Take your Fuji 2, put it on a mixing pad, and let it cure. Give it 20 minutes, half hour. Go treat a patient, come back in 2 hours. You feel that with a fresh gloved finger, what's going to happen is you're going to feel that greasy, unpolymerized layer. That's weakness. Now take another one, another dab of Fuji 2, and put it on the mixing pad, set the light to it, take a new glove, feel it, and you don't have the unpolymerized resin. Okay, now, the unpolymerized resin, this is what Jeremy is just missing the point on. And I'd say this if he was right here. But I just had this conversation with him, so it's real fresh in my mind. Okay, this is what a lot of dentists don't get. That unpolymerized layer is fine under a stainless steel crown. So when we get to talking about halls, how are you going to get the light in there? I want you to use resin-modified glass ionomer under your hall crown, right? I want you to use the resin just like you've been doing, okay? But you can't get the light in there. So you're leaving unpolymerized resin under there. It's fine under a crown. But if you use a resin-modified, that same resin-modified glass ionomer, and you use it as a sealant on the occlusal surface where the forces are direct at 90 degrees, they're straight like this, that's weak. That is not going to hold up. It will hold up much better if you light cure it. And over time, in 3 months, if it is able to stay there, because your occlusal forces may not allow that. But if they do, depending upon their occlusion, your son's being an exception to this, their occlusion, okay, may just rock that out of place. I'm sorry, that's just occlusal forces. They're pretty darn strong, forces of mastication. But if you don't like cure it, you don't have a chance in hell. But under a crown, it's fine because the forces are distributed through the crown. Do you understand? Is there an important question that was? That was awesome. Thank you for asking that question. Doug, did you want to say something to that?
I'm just thinking out loud and trying to be a peacemaker between you and Jeremy. Maybe you're talking about two different things. I agree with you with the Fuji 2 light cure needs to be light cured. What about luting cement that has a different initiator that is not supposed to be light cured?
That's a different issue, and I accept that. Maybe he's talking about that. And we need to come to terms with that because this is such an important issue. Your question is huge. It really is. Because I'm going to show you the zone of chemical fusion with glass ionomer. Okay, and Doug doubted that. He said, show me the evidence. So I had to come up with this evidence. It took me a while, and I came up with it, didn't I, Doug? Okay, next. Okay, look at the zone. That's back to the other slide for a second, and then look. Hold on. This is the zone of chemical fusion. This is hypercalcified. This is so much denser than dentin. These are dentinal tubules. That's a glass ionomer. It looks like rocks. It just looks like a bunch of rocks. When that's gone, when this is gone, when the glass is gone, even if it chips off, the pica eater, he eats rocks. The glass is gone. This stays. That's what you need to know. This is permanent. That's temporary. Go ahead.
This is a Fuji 2 question. The resin, I've never used Fuji 2. I've only used straight glass ionomer.
Right.
Now, the resin modified gives you the ability to harden
Can you
that
put the
up.
mic on his mouth? Thank you.
The resin modified gives you the ability to harden that up sooner if you wanted, I guess. How long can you manipulate your resin modified before you compromise the integrity of the glass ionomer?
The resin modified Fuji 2 is dual cure. Back to you. I'm so glad. See how this is coming up? You did a good job. You totally diverted us, and we're going to go later than we should, but it's important. Okay? It still loses gloss, the dual cure, and you can see the loss. Okay, you can see the loss of that gloss. If you manipulate past that, even on the dual cure, even before you flood cure, you're screwed. You don't want to touch that. Once that has happened, you're done manipulating when you lose that gloss. What affects that cure on the dual cure and the glass on and pure glass on? Two things, guys: temperature and humidity. It's an exothermic reaction. It's activated by heat and moisture. You try treating patients in Maine like I do when I go back home in August, in 100 degrees humidity. I mean, it's 99.9% humidity. It's sweltering. The clinics I work in are FQHCs that have absolutely no air conditioning, and the dentists are keeping their capsules in their pocket, walking around the clinic in their pocket. They're holding it in their hand. They're walking around in the clinic. I'm looking for a gun, and I'm looking for, do you have a gun over here? Yeah. You already killed that capsule, doc. Just throw it away. That already set up in your hand. You need a refrigerator, doc. You can't do this kind of work without refrigerating this material in humid climates, and that includes the Congo. Yeah. Go ahead. No. Don't keep it to yourself. 20%. You understand?
No, I'm aware of what it is. I was just
They don't know about the 20%.
So I was just my point was I didn't want anybody to be using their Fuji2 like it was
like composite.
like a composite.
Yeah, can't use it like a composite. It's still glass armor. And what Doug has just told Luke, and it's so important for you to understand, that we support resin glass ionomers if and only if that glass ionomer, that resin modified glass ionomer, is 80% glass and only 20% composite. I know that you don't like to hear that much about materials, but it's so important that we understand the material. And if somebody comes into your office, that dental supply guy or girl, and she says, I've got this new composite, it's a new resin modified glass ionomer, and you should use this stuff, you should say, oh, wonderful, thank you so much for bringing this to my attention. Can you tell me how much of this new material is actually glass and how much of it is actually resin? Because if there's any more than 20% resin, all of the minerals get locked up in it, like I told you before, okay? And if they say, and 99.9% of the time, what they say to me is, we can't tell you, Dr. Frachella, that's proprietary. I show them the door. I'm sorry, I don't care about the free lunch you just bought my staff. There's the door. I don't buy this proprietary stuff. I call GC, and I am, hey, my disclosures are I'm not getting a penny from GC or from Elevate. Capital paid my honorarium today, okay? Thank you, Capital. I really appreciate that, okay? Thank you for paying my honorarium. But I don't get honorarium from GC or from Elevate. I will say that Elevate has offered me plane fare. Elevate has offered this lunch today. I think Capital Blood, the room, whatever. Advantage did a lot too. Gary, thank you so much, all you guys. But I'm telling you, when I call GC America on the phone, I'm talking to their PhD. His name is Gaurav Joshi. And I talk to Gaurav, a PhD, and I say, Gaurav, I need to know how much resin is in that glass. And you need to tell me exactly what it is. And he doesn't hesitate. He tells me immediately, it's 20%. And he gives me the, here, you want to see the data on it? I'll share the data with you. You don't get that necessarily from some of the other brands. And I'll just take names out of it. Some of the brands do. I'm saying when you use a resin modified glass ionomer, doc, you with the question, with the resin modified glass ionomers over here in the back of the room, ask them how much resin is in it. And if they can't tell you, show them the door, please, and use the materials that from the manufacturers that will tell you how much resin and how much glass. You owe it to yourself and you owe it to your patients. Okay? So let's continue. Can we see the next one, please? All right. The tooth in the zone of chemical fusion become one. The chemically dense and super hard nature of the zone of chemical fusion make it acid resistant and thus resistant to decay, and that's from Milicic and from Hiendo. Next. There it is. This is from Graham Milicic. There is the zone chemical fusion over dentin, and you see the glass ionomer, you see the zone, you see the dentin. Next. Here it is over enamel. This is directly from Hiendo. Look at the density of this. I mean, this is, what do you call it? You called it the Rocky Mountains once, right? Is that what you said? Oh, you called it the Rocky Mountains. I thought it was you. Yeah, he calls it the Rocky Mountains. Dr. Hiendo calls this the Rocky Mountains because they're coming out. If you saw this in 3D, this would be much taller than this. You know, this is bas relief, right? So anyhow, that's on enamel. Okay, so here we are. The strontium, the fluoride transfer from glass ionomer into enamel, and then from enamel into the glass ionomer in the glass. Okay, so this really shows the Rocky Mountains well, because you can almost see it in 3D, right?
Because he treated the surface with phosphoric acid
Phosphoric acid
for the SDM.
for the
So dissolve the glass, dissolve the enamel.
Yeah, it dissolved everything. They used phosphoric acid on purpose because they were studying this in vitro, okay? Next.
John, let me just say, they use it to get the image, not as part of the treatment process.
Yeah, not as part of the treatment. They used the phosphoric acid not as part of the treatment, but to get the image. Okay, next. Okay, this is just showing you the chemical, the ions that are coming in. And then this is actually, again, to get this image, they took a resin impression of the zone of chemical fusion. So you're looking at it in negative right now. Okay, that's what Graham Milicic did in 2004. Next. And then here it is in reverse. Okay. Next. There it is. You can see it all along there. That is permanent, ladies and gentlemen, whether you lose the glass ionomer or not. Next. Thank you for those slides, Doug. Okay, after 8 weeks, the tooth and glass ionomer interface remain molecularly linked and acid resistant, even if the glass ionomer is eventually lost. Next. There it is, the zone of chemical fusion from a resin-modified glass ionomer. Looks less chunky, doesn't it? It's smoother because it's got the composite in it, okay? I'm not advocating one over the other. However, I find that most pediatric dentists really favor Fuji-2 as a sealant and or as a filling material because they can use the light and the kid is unmanageable, they set it up. And we found in my office in Bend, where I work at Bluefish with Dr. Kate Plus, I would go away to Maine for the summer, right? And so Jamesa, who is our hygienist, you've met Jamesa, Jamesa was doing all of the sealants and the smarts with Fuji-2, and I was doing everything with Forte. And she told me when I came back after 3 months in Maine, she said, Dr. John, I got some news for you. She said, mine are holding up better than yours. And they scheduled a whole day of hers and my patients, and I saw my failures with high viscosity glass ionomer, with Forte, and her successes with Fuji-2, and it took me 3 months to figure out what it was in that practice. The reason was popcorn. These kids in this practice eat popcorn. It might have to do with the demographic. It might be cultural. A lot of Mexican families that we love that come to us there, they give out popcorn to their children as an incentive and or a reward for being good in the dental chair. So they were coming out of the dental chair with my high viscosity glass ionomers, put the popcorn in her mouth, crunching on it, breaking my fillings, but not breaking hers because she had put the light on it, which made it initially hard. In the long run, after 3 months, after the maturation phase, they become equally hard. Okay, it's just that when I shine the glass armor on that particular population of patients in that particular age, in that particular practice, on that particular street in Bend, Oregon, Fuji 2 is working better. And maybe it does in your practice too if you're a pediatric dentist. Beware of popcorn. It pops that really good Fuji Forte, Equia Forte, which is a wonderful product. Wonderful. It's awesome. You know, it's really, really good. As is Triage, as are all the others, but they just don't hold up if kids are eating popcorn immediately when they get in the chair, even if you tell them not to. Next one. Okay, retention. Evidence of the zone of chemical fusion eliminates the value of retention as a metric. Boy, do we have a problem with this. This is the big one. Next, please. This is why they're saying that hygienists can't do this, but they ignore the evidence that we have. This is Martin McIntyre's patient at age 5. The glass animal was placed where you see the arrow over unexcavated caries on the distal of S. At age 7, 2 years later, the bulk of the glass animal is gone from S, but the lesion arrested. It remineralized anyway. It remineralized anyway, even with loss of the glass animal, and the lesion in number T also arrested, thanks to the glass armor, which is now gone because of this zone of chemical fusion that prevents decay even when glass armor is lost. With no decay excavation, glass armor remineralized the lesion in S, but it also arrested the lesion on the mesial of T. No other dental material in the history of dentistry has ever done this before. This is a miracle. This is the magic of glass ionomer. It happens at the zone of chemical fusion. Next, please. If the bulk of the glass ionomer is lost, or the sealant is off, it can be easily and inexpensively and atraumatically replaced. Okay? We'll just apply a little more PAA conditioner and reapplying more glass ionomer without needles or drills. You know, that's the important part. Next, please. Beware of the false advertising of bioactive composite. No SEM images and no x-rays exist of a zone of chemical fusion between enamel and or dentin created by any material other than glass, which is at least 80-20. Resin can't remineralize because it's anhydrous and hydrophobic, and remineralization requires moisture. Next. Okay, resin tags are not chemical, bioactive, or permanent. They expand and contract at a rate of 5-to-1. Hot, cold, expansion, contraction of resin, and water pressure from inside tubules can pop out resin plugs, resulting in bacterial infiltration and recurrent decay. You know, Becca, I don't know if Brian still says this in his lectures. You've been to his lectures more recently than I. But he showed us in a lecture at the Oregon Dental Association of a tooth sweating. He isolated the tooth. Does he still do that? He does. Who said that? Oh, he does. Yeah. Okay. So Dr. Novi takes a tooth that he's isolated, and he actually gets a drop of water out of the tube. Okay. Now, I don't know where the depth. Don't ask me. I've asked Brian for this, and Brian didn't answer. Whatever. Okay. The point is that whether or not that you and I can really do that, I don't know. But I know this about dental tubules. They're just like rivers. And I'm a whitewater kayaker. I am an extreme whitewater kayaker. I do creeking and whitewater like nobody's business. I designed whitewater kayaks. That's what I did for years and years while also being a dentist. Okay, and I found that combining the composite materials that I was using in the mouth was very similar to combining composites that I would put in post because they were in the same acid environment, rivers with rocks. Okay, the mouth, rocks, acid environment, same thing. And it was because of knowing materials that we hate to study that I became a very famous whitewater boater and whitewater boat designer for every company you ever heard of, from Perception to Dagger to Riot to everything that's up there now, Wave Sport, all of it. I designed boats, okay? That's what I did, right? And I'm just telling you guys, you know, there's a big, big difference between these resin tags because, like it or not, ladies and gentlemen, that is a river. That is a river. These tubules are a river. You will never win against the river. But you don't have to fight against the river with glass ionomer because glass ionomer loves that river. Glass ionomer and that river are one, Obi-Wan. They are one. They are so happy. You put a dam on a river and you let that river run and it will blow that flipping dam right out. It will blow it all to hell. Unless you reinforce it, and continue to reinforce it, and continue holding it back. Quit trying to hold back that water in teeth. Heal with water. Don't inhibit the water. Next, please. Okay, this blew my mind because I got a phone call from Australia from Ray Bartolotti. Anybody here know who Ray is? Here we go. All the old guys know who Ray is. You guys don't know Ray. Ray was the guy who was here before Gordon Christensen ever came on the scene. He's the guy that taught Gordon Christensen everything he knows. Ray is truly the godfather of composite dentistry, and he writes this in this book by his colleague, Jeff Knight. And there was a big contention going on in one of the listservs, and he called me from Australia, Ray did. This is the book, smart book. And he said, John, you're so right on, I almost fell off my chair. I thought, oh my God, Ray Bartolotti is on the phone. I mean, I studied under him for years. I sat at his feet. I learned composite dentistry. I was a nationally known, lectured on it all the time, bondodontist. Okay? And Ray says, dental pharmacology that enables the use of established medical principles to treat an infectious disease has emerged as an alternative to amputation dentistry. This approach is in harmony with conservation of tooth structure. The combination of adhesion and pharmacology enable clinicians to perform tooth-conserving dentistry that was previously only thought of as a dream. That from Ray, I'm telling you, I almost fell over. I said, are you kidding me? He goes, John, I've been on board for a long time. I said, where you been? He says, Australia. Next slide, please. Here's what he says in the foreword to that book. Jeff Knight has demonstrated, and I would put the name Johnny Norris, I would put the name Kate Kloss, I would put your names, I would put Colin's name on this, has demonstrated that hourly returns for a practice are not negatively impacted by using the pharmacology approach. It can actually increase practice income. That's what we're proving now. With happy patient repeats and referrals, with a pharmacological approach, good dental care becomes more affordable for more patients, which means more money in your pocket. Like Mike Shercliffe always said to me, John, if we do the right thing for the right reasons, the money will go. And he was right, wasn't he?
Yeah.
He's darn, he's right, he's dead on. Just do the right thing for the right reasons. Right, Gary? That's what we always do. Okay, next one. Strength and wear. Okay, GI materials are reported in dental literature and taught in dental schools where you went to dental school as being inferior in strength and wear. However, next. Glass ionomer meets all International Organization for Standardization standards for acceptable dental restorative materials in these categories: compressive strength, flexural strength, biaxial strength, shear punch strength. Glass ionomer's physical properties during the maturation phase, the zone of chemical fusion. During that phase of GIC in saliva in vivo. You didn't learn that in dental school, did you? Next. The The longevity of gait. Go ahead. This is from Doug shared these slides with me. So this is from the Journal of Dental Research, 2019. Next. Resin composite has a lifespan of 6 years. Next. Glass ionomer had a lifespan of 11 years in this study. Next. In all of dentistry, there is only one in vivo study on glass ionomer strength and wear. Can you even believe it? There's 123 studies, and only one is in patients. The rest is all in dentures, and none on the maturation phase. Care should be taken. This is from the study at the bottom by Sidhu and Nicholson, which I love, 2016, from the Journal of Functional Biomaterials. I know you don't like to hear about materials, but this is about biomaterials. 123 studies, okay? Care should be taken when evaluating all glass ionomer strength studies available in dental literature. Only 2 of them are on compressive strength, none are on flexural strength, and none are considered above fair quality. There's a fine absence of guidelines in any in vitro study for testing the potential advantages of gait strength and parameters. These disparities make it difficult to scrutinize and compare the validity of research done to date on glass ionomer's physical characteristics, and you aren't learning that in dental school today, and you didn't learn it in dental school when you went, and I want to know why. Is it because the plastic industry is subsidizing your school? I don't know. I don't want to be too accusational, but why are we missing this? Is this okay anymore? I don't think so. Next, please. The one and only in vivo study was by Von Diamond in 2004. Glass ionomer on enamel changes after 2 to 3 years in situ, which means in the mouth, after which it shows a continuous integration with adjacent enamel becomes one OB1, leading to the formation of an extremely hard glassy material in enamel fissures, which are hard, enamel-like, and well integrated with natural tooth. Next, please. New glass ionomer and resin-modified glass ionomer is way stronger and wears better than the older formulations. Go to Dentistry, uncensored, Howard Farron, and hear the Godfather say it. He looks right into Howard's camera. Gordon himself says, "What would I put in my mouth?" Because, of course, Howard asked him. And he said, pure glass ionomer, thank you. Wow, that's a turnaround. As short a time ago as 3 years ago, Gordon was blasting me. Still won't talk to me. That's okay. I don't care. I'm not offended. It's not personal. It's not about me. It's about the patients. So damn it. But Gordon said it, and I'm going to hold him to it. In 2015, he wants glass ionomer in his mouth. Hello. Ray Bartolotti wants it in his mouth. Hello. Where are we going here? Next, please. Can we please show what I consider the one and only and most important strength and wear studies that is not scientific, but demonstrates clearly how strong glass ionomer is? This is the one and most important video you will see in this presentation.
Hi, I'm trying to simulate again the strength of glass ionomer in an unscientific test. What we did is a large crown type preparation and made a crown glass ionomer. And we stored it in saliva for 2 weeks, and now we're trying to break it.
Soaked in saliva for 2 weeks.
Still in the tooth. Okay. The stone broke. Glass ionomer is still in the tooth. You want to get a close-up? All the margins are intact. There's a few chips, granted.
Have a time.
Okay, look, we got the tooth broke in half. But I want you to notice I was hitting the glass ionomer straight up on the occlusal where there's no enamel, and it caused the whole tooth to split in half. But the glass ionomer is still in the tooth. To chemically fuse them.
The chemical fusion, the zone of chemical fusion. The zone of chemical fusion. Data 1. This is an MOD, different tooth.
So now you're trying to hit the enamel cusp to try to separate the fusion between the cusp and the glass ionomer. Trying to kind of split it in half. That's about as hard as I would hit a small nail. The bottom of the root is shattering. And there we go. Again, we have the tooth splitting in half, but the glass ionomer is still in the tooth.
There's the zone again. The zone of chemical fusion on an MOD. Try it yourself. I have. But you got to soak it in saliva. You need an incubator. Yeah, go ahead. Yeah, she's asking if I would do the silver diamine fluoride and then put it in the GIC, and the answer is absolutely I would. So we're going to talk about that now. Putting in glass ionomer on lesions of posterior teeth. This is the best diagram I could make, and I didn't make it myself. This is a professional artist, graphic artist, that Jeremy and I hired to show my technique of smearing with the finger. Okay, so that's the instrument I use because I always have it with me. It's on the end of my wrist usually. I don't have to look for it. And it's the one I really prefer because it does this best. Go ahead. Okay, so this is in your handouts. Don't read it now. You've got it. I very strongly suggest laminating it and bringing it with you into the operatory. So, firmly tap the capsule on a hard surface. We talked about that. Fluff it up. Squeeze the glass ionomer from capsule into the lesion from the bottom up to avoid air bubbles. Then use a saliva-moistened gloved finger to rapidly adapt the glass ionomer to fissures and lesions. Push down firmly while sliding. Slide without lifting. Slide without lifting, just like you would do to cook a bathtub. Wow, imagine. All right? Use a wave-like motion from quadrant to quadrant and do all the quadrants at once. Immediately, within 2 minutes after pushing and sliding the finger, have the patient bite down. Within that first 2 minutes, establish occlusion. It's a saliva mouth. You're not going to glue any teeth together. Okay? There's saliva in that mouth. Don't try this on a zero stomach patient, as Sarah brought up. You might not want to do this because it could stick. Okay? But on a normal patient, okay, then you remove the excess material where the glass is not meant to be by using a dull probe. You don't need anything sharp for this. And then you apply fluoride varnish to the outer glass ionomer surfaces after 3 minutes and say goodbye. It's that fast. Next, please. Okay, 4 cardinal rules. Don't over manipulate after gloss. After it's glossy, it's gone. After the gloss is gone from fresh glass ionomer, you're done. Okay? Keep the capsules and double barrel syringes cool and dry. Never store them in your pockets. Don't handle them. Don't keep them in your hand. Handle them as little as possible. Avoid heat transfer from your body. And work very fast. Fresh glass ionomer has poor adhesion the more we mess with it. That's the critical thing. Always keep things moist, not too wet, not too dry, because when glass iron gets chalky, it cracks, and it immediately weakens. That's a kiss of death. Take it out. If it starts cracking and getting chalky, you just screwed up. Start all over again. Just pick it out of there with a salt shovel. Doesn't matter. Just get it out of there. Use the patient saliva to moisten all surfaces as you remove excess. Next, please. Okay. This is critical. This is what so many dentists that I work with, when they come and jaw shadow with me, I watch them do this on their own patients, even on my patients. They remove unsupported overhanging enamel. That's what you learned in dental school, isn't it? Didn't they say, remove that unsupported enamel, remove that overhanging stuff? Look, don't do as you were taught when using amalgam or composite. Preserve all unsupported enamel when using resin-modified glass ionomer or regular glass ionomer. It doesn't matter. Unsupported overhanging enamel adds scaffolding for the glass ionomer remineralization. That overhanging stuff, think of it like stalactites and stalagmites in a cave. That's where all those minerals are. They're hanging out in there. You put that glass ionomer in there, man, that just, boom, there's where your adhesion is, right, Doug? Don't remove that overhanging stuff. Learn to remove too much, guys. You gotta stop. Next. Okay, this is a 6, and these are the last slides on this section, I think. Okay, 16-year-old with demineralization. This kid comes in, and his parents are literally rocket scientists. That's what they do. They design rockets. I actually did. Different China. What do you guys do? Oh, we did. Mom and dad both design rockets. Neither of them are home. They're in the lab all the time. And the kid sits on the computer. He's a rocket scientist to be. And he's just, drinking sugary drinks and eating, the wrong kind of food, etc. And he had absolutely no intention of improving his diet or his hygiene. His hygiene was horrible. Okay? And Dr. King wanted me to do composites on this. And he said, I'm not going to do composites on this kid. Are you kidding me? Why would I do that? Next. So, what I did was, we used some topical anesthetic because I wanted to use some wedges. I used some wood wedges, okay, just for a little bit of separation. And then with hand instruments, I did some partial decay. And then only hand instruments, absolutely no dose, no rotary dose. And then I applied polyacrylic acid. Next. Patient not committed to dietary or hygiene changes, GIC chosen over composite to prevent recurrent decay. Next. And that's a result. I used Equate Forte on him because there aren't going to be any occlusive forces there. These are all interproximals. That's where he was accumulating. So I knew he wasn't going to go and eat popcorn on me, and even if he did, it wouldn't have affected it because it's not on occlusive surfaces. Okay? And I used Forte because it's the most composite-like that we have. But keep in mind, it's Forte HT, which stands for high translucency. Okay? And the cool thing about HT is that in 3 months, it increases in translucency. So think of it as chameleon-like, but that the chameleon-like properties increase over time during the maturation phase when the zone of chemical fusion is forming and the tooth and the glass become one grasshoppers. One. Okay? Next. Conclusions. Unlike any other dental material, restorative glass ionomer is antibacterial, remineralizing, desensitizing medicine. Applied in the presence of moisture, it is applied, must be applied in the presence of moisture. It is structure building of unsupported enamel. It is medicinal with partial decay excavation, and it is healing to irritated gingival tissue. Huh? Yeah, and there's your reference from Santos. Way back in 2007, Anchol Bird. Back in 1990. Now, when you leave an overhang with your favorite composite, I don't care whether it's Herculite or whatever the heck you're using that Gordon Christensen taught you to use, and you make an overhang over gingiva, you're in trouble, aren't you? It irritates. It gets very puffy. It gets, uh-oh, I left an overhang. I have to redo that. Bad me, right? That's what happens with composite. You do that with glass ionomer, and ladies and gentlemen, the gingiva loves it. You can overhang all you want. And I'm not suggesting that you do overhang. I'm just saying, if you're seeing 50 patients a day and you're smushing that shit in there, like I do, and you're getting them boom, 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 one after another, and they're flying out the door, you don't have to worry about gingival irritation because it's kind to the gums. And when I see that many patients a day, I don't even care if I glue teeth together. I go ahead and do it because there's absolutely no evidence that gluing teeth together does anything negative in terms of what I told you this morning. I have worked in growth and development with orthodontists, including my brother, and plastic surgeons in the cleft palate field for 40 years. And there is no evidence anywhere that if we glue primary teeth together, it does anything negative to the growth and development. Yeah.
Getting tired of me, buddy.
I love it, buddy. That's why
He brought me here to buddy.
I insisted on you coming in.
So John's saying some terrific stuff, but I just want to chime in. Think of an overhang with glass ionomer as opposed to feathering a margin out. I like to overbulk and feather the margin out instead of a butt joint, because if you clean that surface that you're like flash,
Yes,
if you clean that surface and remove the pellicle and biofilm,
like this.
exactly. If you remove the biofilm pellicle, what are you going to get? Chemically fused zone, floral appetite. So there's no negative. Even if that wears off with acid or abrasion, you're left with that protected surface. Do that with composite and you get microleakage. So for aesthetics, to get aesthetic results, it blends in much better when you feather that overbulk.
You're going
and
to see
feather
his
it out.
results. You're going to see his results on the most dramatic case I think any of us has ever seen. You're going to see that in my after lunch. I'm going to show you a study. Just sort of. Yeah.
Are you going to talk about reimbursements and insurance later?
Absolutely. Yeah. She wants to know if I'm going to talk about reimbursements later. Okay. And I am. But I'm going to say this. Go ahead. Switch to the next slide. Sarah, I'm going to mention it right now. Hold on a second. First, before I do reimbursement, this is the last two slides. Is it too early to have lunch? Do you want to go into number 3 and then we'll have lunch?
Yeah, I don't think it'll be ready.
Okay, good. We'll go right into number 3 and then we'll have, we'll break at 3 and then we'll have lunch, in part 3 and then we'll have lunch, okay? So I'm doing my best to get through all these. Please, again, I know it's too long. All right? I know it. But when you re-attend dental school, I'm talking 4 years of dental school, what are we going to do that? And if we do 6 hours today, good luck, Anyway, this was sent to me last week by Thierry. Thierry Boulanger is a pediatric dentist who works in Brussels. He's invited me to come join him in IAPD, in the International Association of Pediatric Dentists in Maastricht in the Netherlands. I don't know if we're going to be able to go. We are not being welcomed. They don't like us any more over there, Gary, than they like us here. Okay? I'm sorry, they just don't. Why? Because they learned drills and needles, and when we say no drills and needles, they go, well, why did I go to dental school for 4 years? And why? Because we're saying it doesn't necessarily take a dentist. Well, they don't want to hear that in Europe any more than they want to hear it here. Okay, so Theory sends me this, 5-year-old, first visit. Now, keep in mind, he speaks broken English. So this is his slide. I have not modified this slide. So he says, you have 10 minutes. He's telling me, John, this patient just came in, he sent you here, you got 10 minutes. You don't have any more than 10 minutes. How many of you have had that happen? Everybody. You got 10 minutes. The office manager is huffing and puffing out there. The owner of the office is huffing and puffing. You need it in chair 3, you're in chair 2, chair 5 needs you. Everybody needs you. You're being pulled in 1,000 directions. Next appointment is in 4 to 5 months. You ask your assistant, when am I going to see you next? 4 to 5 months. Oh, okay. 84, they number their numbers of teeth are different. Okay. What are your options? Wait, try pulpotomies and screw up your schedule and the child's confidence and lose teeth? What are you gonna do? The theory did was he applied silver diamine fluoride right down in there. He's got 10 minutes. Next slide. Oh, doesn't that look terrible? Now, that doesn't look terrible to me. Glass ionomer medicine is applied. He bought time. He bought the child's confidence. Look at that kid's face. Look at her thumbs up. All options later, including restorative, are still open for us. You have done no harm, doctor. You have done no harm as a hygienist. And how do you charge for those? Sarah, I would charge for every one of those as a composite per service, as I have told you in many emails. I'm sorry, guys. Glass ionomer is a composite according to the CDC code. Okay? That is from the American Dental Association. I think it was 2014 when I called them on the phone and I said, I want floor 7, I want CDT. I've been there. It's Chicago. I'm calling them from a yurt, which is basically a tent, which is where I live on a mountaintop in the middle of absolutely nowhere. And I said, unless you want your lawyers to talk to my lawyers, I have never had a lawyer. Unless you want your lawyers to talk to my lawyers, you change that book now. Because glass ionomer is a composition of materials, which is how you define composite. And if you don't know English, don't make me teach you. I said, do it and do it now. Oh no, we have to talk to the committee. I said, I don't care about your committee. I'm calling lawyers now. This is composite. They said, we'll get back with you. They called me back readily. I mean, in that day, they called me back. And they said, you are absolutely right. Now, you look in that CDT book, and it says that glass ionomer is a composite. Why wouldn't you charge that per surface for composite? As a composite. Go ahead.
So the issue is as a hygienist, we operate under a different scope and law.
Okay.
So
as a hygienist, because you can't hear her, just hear this. As a hygienist, she can't do that. I can. So she asked me, how would I charge it as a dentist? How can she charge it?
So I've tried to charge it as a sealant, but I see geriatric patients.
Right.
Insurers only pay sealants up to age 18.
Okay, so they're not hearing you. So she wants to charge it as a sealant, but her patient population is geriatric, and it isn't covered in her state. Sealants for geriatrics isn't covered for her state. So have you tried charging it as a sedative filling?
Is that D9110?
I do not know the codes.
We are going to, but then you get into the supervision of the dentist with you and everything.
Okay, so now she's got a supervision of the dentist issue. Well, guess what? We don't have that problem. Right here in Oregon. And guess where else we don't have it, guys? All the way across to the East Coast in Maine. So now we can have our Sarahs do exactly what you see on the screen and charge that as a sedative filling. Yeah.
In Oregon, though, you need to have a collaborative agreement.
You need to have a collaborative agreement with the dentist in Oregon, and in Maine you do too. Okay? So you do have to have the collaborative agreement with the dentist. Okay. The whole point here is no harm is done when the dentist does it. Understand? No harm is done. Whether Dr. Thierry Boulanger does it, or I do it, or Sarah does it, or Ashley does it. No harm is done when you've got 10 minutes. And if you don't work within that 10 minutes, you may lose your job. And then nobody gets treated. The only smart that is the wrong smart, the only smart that you shouldn't do is the one you don't do. The one you don't do. Yeah, go ahead, Steve.
John, what instrument was used to place those GICs?
His index finger, the one on the end of his wrist. That's how he did it. Go ahead.
So if we're going with the sedative fillings to actually do it, is this?
Yes, and after this do it and charge it as a sedative filling, you bet. Now, one of the other codes, I think, is ITR. Is it not, Ashley?
Yeah, but I think that it's the same. I feel like we use ITR and protective restoration interchangeably, but it's the
And I want to kill ITR. I want to kill it right now. I want to bring it to the front of the room, and I want to string it up with a noose, and I want to hang it from the middle of the ceiling right here. QITR. Dang it. ITR stands for Interim Therapeutic Restoration. It was art before it was ITR. But what happened, ladies and gentlemen? Can you trace it back with me, please? Yo Franken, God bless him. What a great researcher, what a great guy. Comes up with ART, and AAPD puts both hands on their hips and says, no way. We're going to lose patients. We got to call it interim. Because if we don't call it interim, they won't come back. And then how are we going to make money? How are we going to afford the new car and the new house? And the cottage on the lake? Yeah, and the student loan debt. How are we going to do that? How are we going to pay the office overhead? And how are we going to do all that? No. We need to call it something that guarantees the patient will come back. We can't be calling it art, so we'll call it interim therapeutic restoration. Now, please repeat after me. Every single restoration in every single mouth, including yours and mine, is interim. There is no such thing as definitive. I hear these words from these pediatric doctors. Is that definitive treatment, doctor? Is that definitive treatment, Dr. Boulanger? Definitive my butt. You think the composites that you take forever to do are definitive? They're junk. They're cariogenic. And you know who said that? Gordon Christensen. And you can hear it in that podcast. He says composites are cariogenic. That means they cause cavities. You're putting things in teeth that cause cavities. Is that okay? I don't think so. I don't think it's all right anymore. And yet, how are we going to change it? How are we going to do this? We're going to go to CDT. We're going to go to CDT and do this with the ex-governor. What's his name? Kitzhaber. Give me a break. That ain't going to happen. This isn't going to happen. There are huge industries. There are huge corporations making tons and tons of money, Adam, on plastic fillings that are going to inhibit us from doing this. They're going to stop us. If we try to go to a court of law, Gary, and we go in there with all our evidence, you and I both know it's going to get settled out of court, and we're going to walk away losing that battle. Because the corporate entities have more money than we do. There is only one way this is going to happen. And that is if we get an uprising from the people, from the mothers whose children have died, including the one that we just heard about today from Crystal. That's how we change this, through the parents who are going to drive that bus, because that's who this matters to the most. Because I have yet to meet a parent that wants their kid to have needles and drills. And I'm not saying that we should throw all needles and drills away. We should throw away hospital dentistry. Again, there are certain cases where that is absolutely necessary for certain special needs patients, and we should have that as a subspecialty. keep it. Not to be used ubiquitously and not to be used without using SDF and essential medicines, Glass-Armor and SDF, as a first measure against the disease and prove that we have used it first before we take those other measures that harm patients' day. That's the bottom line. We're not going to take it anymore. And that's what we have to put our foot down on for the patients that we serve relative to what the good doctor said at the beginning of this part. It's about humanity, is it not, Doc? Yes, it is. And this is the CEO of Capital Dental. Come on. I think we're getting there. Capital's got the right idea. Look who they hired. Congratulations, Captain. Congratulations, Doc. This is how we treat patients when we've got 10 minutes. I'm sorry, it's not ideal dentistry, but we've done no harm. And all options later, including restorative. Okay? Next slide. That's it. All right, let's go to 3. Yeah, wow. I know. Sorry. Don't shoot the messenger.
Oh, this is really eye-opening.
I know it is. Well, it
I
is.
just wondering why don't they teach this stuff in dental school?
Why don't they, it's eye-opening, it's amazing. Why don't they teach it in dental school? I'm going to go back to school. Huh?
And hygiene.
And in hygiene school. Well, we are going to be teaching it in hygiene school. Can you put the next one? Oh, good. We're in 3. We are going to be teaching in the hygiene school in Vermont. We're hoping that Vermont can be a model for the rest of the nation with Dr. Johnny Norris. He is a powerhouse. Ask Mike. Hey, John Frachella talked about Johnny Norris. What's that? Yeah. I mean, how do you get Mike and Peter on a plane and fly them all the way to Vermont? You got to have somebody on the other end that's got something to say. Huh, Gary? Yeah. And he does. Johnny, and he sat there just like you. But he didn't say a peep. He never even raised his hand. I had no idea who he was. I'll give you a quote from him near the end of this. Okay, let's keep moving. And we got about another, about a half hour and then lunch. Is everybody okay? Feel free to walk out and go to the bathroom if you have to. But I want to make sure we get through all of this.
Dr. John, I just can't help but say this. And in relation to what you just said about the doctor, about humanity, the last time I was in the Democratic Republic of Congo, I just cannot forget when I had to, there was a child that came in and it was my only chance to help this child. And I couldn't do what I wanted to do. I had to do an extraction. I won't go into the details, but we had to have 4 people to hold this child down in order for me to have to extract that tooth. And I knew about what I could have done, but in that particular circumstance, I just could not do it. I won't go into it. But I'll tell you, we should never, ever in this world have to hold a child down with 4 people in order to extract a tooth. And we got these tools. And so whatever it takes to stand for what we believe in and to fight the system, let's do it. Let's not give up. Let's remember what we're called to. It's for humanity. That's all I wanted to say. Thank you, Dr. John.
Okay, now let's talk about combination therapy. This is part 3. Remember, that is one of the dependencies of SDF. Combining things. Okay, next. So we're going to talk about combining fluoride varnish to SDF. Thank you, Dr. Duffin, for that. We're going to talk about combining 5,000 parts per million. We're going to talk about SMART, which combines SDF and glass ionomer. And we're going to talk about adding provolone iodine, and we're probably not going to talk about Curadoc because we don't have time. Okay, next, please. Okay, primary benefit of adding fluoride varnish to SDF, combination therapy. It increases the effectiveness because fluoride varnish protects high concentrations of medical silver ions in silver diamine fluoride from being immediately weakened by salivary dilution. What does that mean? Jeremy Horst gives us the data on this, and the science doesn't lie, guys. Concentration dependent. SDF is concentration dependent. The ions in it. The more ions in concentration, the more arrest. So what does a fluoride varnish do? It does 2 things. It keeps the SDF from becoming immediately diluted, but it also helps with the taste problem, okay? Because we do have a taste problem. Now let's address the taste problem for just a minute. There's a couple ways to do it. Peter Milgram likes to use a dab of toothpaste, okay? I don't like to use the dab of toothpaste for the simple reason that I'd rather that you use the fluoride varnish, because you get the double whammy. I like that combination. So mask taste with the fluoride varnish, okay? And then secondly, yeah, go ahead.
No, but what Dr. Milgram does a lot of the time with his toothpaste is he rubs it on the patient's tongue.
Yes.
So they're tasting that before, so I don't think he's using it in
No.
lieu of.
No, he's not using it for, what I didn't mean to imply that Peter would do that. What I'm implying is that dentists will, other dentists, because they're not paying attention to what Peter's saying. Because they stop when they say, oh, I don't need the fluoride varnish, I'll just use the toothpaste like Peter does. And then they don't use the fluoride varnish, which Peter, of course, does. You know, I mean, we owe a tremendous indebtedness to Dr. Peter Milgram. Don't ever forget that. Don't ever forget how important Peter Milgram is to everything that I've said so far. I was honored to spend 3 days with Peter. He tagged me when we went to Steve and Doug and I went to Phoenix, and Peter asked me to lead the Caries study on elders at Case Western Reserve to teach the glass ionomer part. And in so doing, I got a chance to spend 3 full days and nights, evenings with Peter. And we went out to lunch and dinner every night, and I got to know the man really well. And what a powerhouse, what an incredible man. You ever get a chance to sit and listen to Peter or work with Peter or get invited to go overseas with Peter, whew, that man, he's really incredible. But anyway, I want to get back to the tapes. And one of the things that we're doing right now, Jeremy and I have been onto Graham Craig. You're going to see a lot about Graham Craig. That's this guy, the tiny little book up here. He's from Australia. He's been doing SMART, silver diamine, fluoride, and glass ionomer together since 1978. Yes, oh my gosh. Oh my gosh.
John, let me just say that book is inside the SMART book.
Yeah, this whole book is in the SMART book. You don't have to buy this book. This is a chapter in the book, in the SMART book. Thank you, Steve. I forgot that. Okay. We were on the street in San Francisco when we did Street Smart, and I was smearing, and Jeremy was mixing with a bicycle. I have a way of mixing glass ionomer with a bicycle. Did you know that? Did you know that I mix glass ionomer with a bicycle? So I call it the bicycle triturator. All you need is a bicycle and a credit card and a hole in it. And you can look this up on YouTube. It's bicycle triturator, YouTube. Okay? And you can see how to mix with a bicycle. And we were mixing on the street, and we were working on homeless people illegally. I don't have a California license. We were working illegally on homeless people on the street in front of the Moscone Center. And across the street was the IADR was going on across the street. And I'm working on this patient with my finger, and I'm smearing, and I hear this, that's amazing. That's amazing. Get over it. I can't see anybody. I'm looking over the guy's head. I don't realize it because he's all scooped down. He's like this. And he's going, that's amazing. And Steve comes up to me and goes, that's Graham Craig saying that. I said, what? He goes, that's Graham Craig. I said, you're kidding me. He goes, I've never seen anybody do it with their hand, with their fingers. He said, that's just amazing. And I got a chance to meet Graham. And that man is, oh boy, he's our hero. He really is. Yeah. See the thumbs up from Jerry? Jerry calls Graham on the phone weekly in Australia. Anyway, the point is, Graham handed me at that, what was that, 2017? They handed me that IDR. He handed me a sample of aqueous silver fluoride. And he says this has a better shelf life than Advantage Arrest. And you don't need the ammonia, the NH3. And I'll prove it to you. Take this bottle and don't tell anyone because it's highly illegal, because the FDA doesn't approve it, and use it on your patients. I did. I did the illegal thing because I am the smuggler, as is Peter Milgram. Peter Milgram smuggled fluoride varnish. I did not know him. It was in the 80s. I smuggled fluoride varnish out of Italy. He smuggled it out of Asia. I smuggled silver diamine fluoride out of Japan. We did it legally in hotels just like this one, in front of their surveillance cameras, so that we exchanged dollar for dollar of what they were paying in Japan, and we took cases of silver diamine fluoride because Mike couldn't get it for me anymore, because you guys couldn't get it anymore, and that's why Mike started with Peter to formulate their own. So I am a smuggler, okay? And very proud of it. By the way, I'm a mountain biker, and I do ride a transition smuggler, and I'm proud of that also. It's the fully suspended biking one. But at any rate, Graham proved to me. But he did share with me, Shannon, that he almost burned his house down doing it. Because, as Jerry will tell you, he makes his own, doesn't he, Jerry? He's awesome. He's awesome. He makes his own silver fluoride. But he leaves the ammonia out. So he finds this guy in Australia, Sydney, working in academia, like you, Doug, and his name is Silvano D'Ambrosio. He's originally from Sicily, from the very same community that my people are from. And we start talking to Italian on the phone. I'm talking to Graham. You got to talk to Silvano. And Silvano says, we got this product, but we can't get it in the United States because the FDA won't clear it. But I want you guys to know something. Contrary to everything we thought, Steve, Elevate has stepped up to the plate with Jeremy's help. And Kevin Thomas, your CEO, my friend. Yeah, they're bringing it. They're bringing it in. We're going to have a silver fluoride without the ammonia. Now, it's going to take time. You know how much it costs. We all know how much it costs, those of us on the inside, for Peter and Mike to have amassed the money to bring Advantage Arrest in. But we're going to have a better product. We're always going to have a better product. We're always going to have a better silver fluoride. But it's going to be thinking like an atom, not like a dentist. That's going to get us there. Okay, so just so you know, because we're on case. Next slide, please. Okay, so here's what your tray should look like, something like this. Silver diamond. This is from Jeanette, by the way. Jeanette McLean, silver diamond, wonderful gal. If you ever get a chance to hear Jeanette speak, you know she's just a rock star. She's a wonderful, wonderful person, and a wonderful lecturer. She has so much great information. She likes to use the timer. I congratulate her on that. I think that would help a lot of dentists, a 60-minute timer. Cotton, tapping dishes, micro brushes, paint brushes, fluoride varnish, silver diamond. Go ahead. Okay, this is the black and hard that we're looking for that assures normal exfoliation. Next. Okay, normal exfoliation. Okay, adding 5,000 parts per million of paste to silver diamond fluoride, glass armor, and dye changes provides more highly concentrated fluoride ions. Again, concentration. It's concentration dependent. Jeremy shows us that. He's got the data on it. Prescribed only if patients don't swallow the toothpaste. You got to make sure they're spitting out toothpaste. You don't want to swallow it. We don't want this to become systemic at the load of 1,000 parts or 5,000 parts per million. Protocol is to substitute the 5,000 parts per million paste for regular toothpaste at night time only. Night brushing. Floss it between the teeth. No rinse, no eat. Straight to bed. Okay. Confirm efficacy with periodic x-rays. Okay? When you can. If no further evidence of lesion progression, do not drill. How many times do you guys see the 14-year-old, 15-year-old, 16-year-old, usually female, come in with the, here's how I identify them. Here's what they look like. Hi, Dr. John. It's like, and you're looking up. Whoa, you had a gross surgery. And then you send them over to the hygienist, and she takes the full mouth x-rays or the Panrex, and they've got all those initial lesions between their teeth, and none of them is through the DEJ. And what does the dentist do? He drills them. Those are not cavitated lesions. It took us years, Dr. Kate and I, to figure it out. It's hormonal changes. It's growth. It's long bone growth. The body wants the calcium. It wants those minerals. It'll take it anywhere it can get. And you start seeing it in these kids, and there's a way to stop it. 5,000 parts per million. This is what I recommend. I love this stuff. And I like it because this comes from our friends at Elevate, and it's a pump. And they can't use too much. You don't want them to use too much. You want them to use just the right amount. So one squeeze, and it goes on the toothbrush. Okay? At nighttime. Next slide, please. Okay. This is the slide that says it all. This is from my good friend, Dr. Peter Vainos. He is a dentist in America who is originally from Greece. And he has become my very good friend through lecturing. Again, like Dr. Johnny Norris, he has sat through one of these. God help him, right? Poor guy. He sat through a number of these. And he is the president of the Maine Academy of General Dentistry. And he has a young son who he does not want to use needles and drills on. And this is what he did. We saw this earlier in the SDF, but this is a much better image, okay, than in part one. You can see how deep the decay is. And what he did, he established this. Look at this. The radiolucency of this tells us how calcified that is. He did that with SDF and fluoride varnish. Probably 3 or 4 applications of SDF and then continual, not 5,000 parts per million fluoride varnish, 5,000 parts per million paste. Excuse me, I said that wrong. This stuff. I got him this. I said, use this, Peter, on your son. And he flossed this into his teeth every night instead of using regular paste. And then nothing to eat and nothing to drink and no rinsing, straight to bed. That's what does that, and that's what will take care of those initial lesions in those young ladies, and especially, but we see them in some in the men in the males also, that are having that growth spurt, and they start losing that calcium right at the very thin, right in the proximal where the DEJ is really, tends to the right to cement, right in that area. Okay, next please. So that's an example of adding of combination therapy. Adding glass ionomer to SDF, that is smart. And it is the most effective combination therapy option of all. So I want you to pay attention to this next slide especially. Okay, next slide, please. Okay, your working time, smart, silver modified atraumatic restorative treatment. This is our artist's rendition of what it looks like. And then we smush with the finger. Notice the moisture on the gloved finger. Okay? And we smush it down into there. But we don't lift off. You never lift off. It's this. It's always down and across. Wave-like motion over to the next student. Next, please. Okay. So, as per Doug Young, we have solid evidence for caries control with SDF. We have evidence for that. I showed it to you earlier. That first series of slides. We have evidence for incomplete caries removal. We did that in part 2. And we have evidence for glass ionomer, also in part 2. We put the evidence of all 3 of those together to say that we have evidence in 3 parts to do SMART. Okay, continue. This is the slide I wanted you to see. This is the one I want you to pay attention to. Now Dr. Rick Niederman at NYU shared this with me. SDF alone, 80% effective, takes 5 minutes, costs $5 US. ART, so glass ionomer alone, 80% effective, takes 15 minutes, costs $12. This glass ionomer isn't cheap. Can't get it cheap. We've tried to make it cheap, you just can't. Okay? Silver diamine fluoride in glass ionomer, 96%. Wow. 20 minutes and $15. That is just shared research from Biederman to me. I don't know if this is in a paper yet, or it was intended to be, or whatever, but Rick told me I could use it. I find this so pertinent to your question, what is smart? Okay, so in some countries, like where Luke goes and where Jerry goes, they can't afford the smart. They can't afford SDF and glass ionomer, the 96%, because they just don't have that $15. Okay, so yes, 80% is good, you know, and so silver fluoride and or silver diamine fluoride or silver nitrate, as Luke has used silver nitrate very effectively. The only problem with silver nitrate, in my opinion, is that it's single agent therapy. You're only using the silver part, you don't have the fluoride going with it. So I really would rather see you using silver fluoride, not necessarily diamine fluoride. And for all I know, we're going to get the silver fluoride through Kevin and through Elevate, and it may end up being cheaper because we don't have the ammonia in it, and we don't know that yet. We don't know because they're going to have to pay a lot of costs just to get the FDA approval. So I'm not sure, but I do appreciate the fact that you use fluoride varnish too, so you're getting that combination. So you're not just doing a single agent, you know, and you're putting a glass ionomer in too, so you've got multiple agents. But the point I'm trying to make here is that Jerry and Luke represent a faction of individuals who are going to countries where they can't afford 96% effective, because that is expensive.
So,
Yeah.
John, let's not, the one thing that's missing is the Canada paper from Margarita Fontana.
No, it's not missing, it's in here.
But it's not on that
No, it's
slide.
not on that slide.
But it's 96%.
Yeah. So Steve is pointing out something really important, that the Margarita Fontana Canada paper shows that SDF and fluoride varnish, that's new, brand new, 96%. So it's equal to the SDF and the GIF. So we've got these studies out there, including the Pecori study that I helped Peter with, where we're studying ART against SDF, and we're studying SMART against just ART and just SDF. And we're finding that when it's done properly, and when we honor all of the dependencies of each one, because glass ionomer has its dependencies, as does silver diamine fluoride. When we honor the dependencies, the more we honor the dependencies, well, guess what? The more effectiveness we have. Yeah, so very important. Next one. You got this in your handouts. You don't need to read it now. It's in your handouts. Dang it, laminate this and bring it in the operatory with you, will you guys? It's unbelievable. Step 1, 2, 3. And then we're going to be done and we'll have lunch here real soon. Step 1. Remove soft, unremineralizable caries. Leave leathery dentin. Apply silver diamine fluoride for as many visits as it takes for it to get hard and black. And this is 2 visits more, or multiple visits more. I'm not talking about first visit, 1 visit more. I'm talking about if you have the option and you can do it in multiple visits, fine. I don't have that option with 50 patients a day. My patients are all no-shows. Every single one that comes in, it is the first time and the last time I will ever see them again in my life. I know it, they know it. So I get 1 shot. I'm talking about more ideal situation. You've got an ideal patient. They continually come in. Mrs. Smith brings all her kids in. She's always on time. She's wonderful. God bless you. I'm glad you've got that privilege. I don't have that in my, and you don't either when you go to the Congo. You don't either, Jerry, when you go where you go. Step 2, scrub with polyacrylic conditioner for 10 seconds. Dab access polyacrylic conditioner with a damp cotton. I don't rinse. I don't want that stuff spraying up into me. I don't need the flu. I just dab it. And then I apply glass ionomer, resin glass ionomer, smear it across and down with saliva lube, microbrush, cotton swab, or glove finger. I keep it moist for 3 minutes until set. If glass ionomer, I like here from 20 to 40 seconds. If it's resin modified, no numbing, no drills, no tears, no aerosol. Yes, disinfection, desensitization, remineralization, and prevention of recurrent decay. And that's what I did when I do SMART. And that's what it looks like down the line. That's 1 month post-op. And do you see the halo around that? See the halo around the glass ionomer? I show the child and I show the parent. Get over here, Mom. Yeah, the child hold a hand here. I said, look at that. Those are the zombies we left in there. They're fighting your decay. And the kids are thrilled. And then I say to the parents, in no uncertain terms, do not let any other dentist tell you that that's decay under this. That is hard and black and not decay. And if you go to a dentist who wants to remove that, please walk out and come back here. I'll treat you for free. Don't bring him to that dentist if they say they want to drill that. Because they don't know what they're talking about. And that's the best way I know to teach other dentists. To quit removing these. And there is no reason to remove this for something that you or any other dentist thinks is more definitive. Because it is not more definitive. That's as definitive as it gets. That is not an interim therapeutic restoration. That is a SMART, as definitive as any restoration, or more definitive as per the studies that Doug has provided with us of glass ionomers lasting longer than amalgams and composites. Next. This is an example of SMART. This is combining SDF and glass ionomer, creating two structures denser and harder than sound enamel in 3 years. These are SEM images of an exfoliated primary incisor showing effectiveness of SMART 3 years post-op. Same naturally exfoliated tooth on the right. 3 years post-op, densities greater than the density of enamel are identified in violet, even higher densities are identified in red. This was done in a condo in Redmond on a couch with Dr. Horst, Dr. Duffin, and I on a phobic child, needle and drill phobic child, whose mother was an orthomolecular biologist at the University of Washington.
And she drove 1,000 miles so that John could do it.
She drove 1,000 miles so I could do this on her daughter in a condo with no dental shit. And Dr. Jeremy Horst took this and provided us with these slices from the national lab, Lawrence Livermore National Laboratory of the United States of America in Oakland. Next. Okay, we're going to do the hands-on immediately after lunch. Before you leave, go to lunch, let me just say, what we're going to do is pretend that we're cleaning plaque, food, and pellicle from the lesion. Then we are going to scrub with silver diamine fluoride, okay, and wait for capillary action on these teeth. These are plastic teeth. You don't have to worry about it. They're plastic. I created these fake cavities with a Dremel drill, not a dental drill. A straight Dremel drill in my barn, on my workbench, where I work on bicycles and skis, okay? And then what I did was I painted these lesions with Rust-Oleum Rusty Metal Primer, just so you know, that's what you're going to be looking at. Rust-Oleum Rusty Metal Primer, painted with a ceramic brush. It took me forever. And then I took these little Dixie cups and poured these up. So each of you will have a tooth to work on. And what we're going to do is you're going to apply polyacrylic acid for 20 seconds. Then you're going to scrub to remove the smear layer, because the smear layer forms through the decay process. You've heard of the smear layer forming when you use a drill. Well, guess what? Decay is like a drill, and it forms a smear layer also. And you have to remove that for the glass ionomer to be able to adhere. Okay, then you're going to wick off your excess polyacrylic acid with damp cotton or a dry microbrush. You're going to leave all surfaces moist with the silver diamine fluoride, because guess what? It's 38% sodium fluoride. That means it's 62% water. 62% water is plenty of moisture for not too wet, not too dry. So you're going to keep it wet with that, but not too wet, not too dry. You're going to dab off what's necessary, keeping the moisture. And then you're going to backfill slowly into there, and you're going to overfill it, and you're going to take your gloves. You're going to have a set of gloves, all the tables will. You're going to dip your glove into some water like this, and then you're going to smush it onto here. And you're going to make it do that, what Doug said. You're going to put that flash layer on there. You're not going to have an overhang. You can't make an overhang with your finger. That's the cool thing about the finger, right? No overhang with the finger, okay? And you're going to make that nice, smooth flash that Doug was explaining to you with your moist glove finger by pushing down and sliding and not lifting, and you will have done your first smooth. Isn't that cool? All right. So we're going to stop here. Is this good? We're stopping?
Lunch is ready.
Lunch is ready. All right. Thank you for your patience, everyone. I really appreciate it.
We're not gonna take it. We're not gonna take it anymore.
Let's play some geography.
Okay, everybody, we ready? Let's get going.